A federal judge in the District of New Mexico sentenced Marquette Johnson for sexually assaulting multiple victims while employed as a private prisoner transport officer. Johnson abused his authority and violated these women's constitutional rights. He subjected these women who were handcuffed, shackled, and unable to defend themselves to nightmarish treatment that should never happen in our criminal justice system. This sentence shines a light on the private prisoner transport industry that countless law enforcement agencies across this country rely on to transfer people who are arrested on warrants outside their jurisdiction. This collection of private companies often operates with limited accountability or oversight in the shadows of our criminal justice system. Some private transport officers have physically and sexually abused vulnerable victims based on the apparent calculation that these victims would either not come forward or, if they did, that law enforcement would not believe them. Authorities in state and local governments give these private transport officers authority over people who are being moved from one jurisdiction to the next. A public function, but one with limited public accountability. The victims are often restrained and must comply with the transport officer's legitimate instructions. That leaves them at the mercy of officers who can physically or sexually abuse them with impunity. The transports can take days, traversing remote areas, often with little or no communication with government officials. With slight or non-existent external oversight, abuses of power during these transports can go unreported for days, weeks, or even years, as victims may be fearful of reporting. I want to be clear. Private transport officers are not above the law. Just like any other public official, they are obligated to respect the constitutional rights and the basic humanity of the people entrusted to their care. The Department of Justice, in partnership with authorities, will vigorously investigate and prosecute credible allegations of misconduct by those operating in the private prisoner transport industry. The prosecution of Marquette Johnson is not the first time that the department has worked with partners to prosecute private prisoner transport officers who sexually or physically abuse those in their custody. In 2023 alone, federal judges in the Northern District of Oklahoma, the Western District of Missouri, and the District of New Mexico sentenced 3 other private prisoner transport officers, Dwayne Dudley, Roderick Hankins, and Anthony Bunton, in prosecutions that we brought for violating the civil rights of the women and men in their custody. Defendant Dudley, who is based in Oklahoma, kidnapped and sexually assaulted a male detainee who he was transporting, first sexually assaulting the man inside a hotel room and then inside the officer's own apartment. Defendant Hankins sexually assaulted a female detainee inside a rest stop bathroom in Missouri. And defendant Bunton, who was prosecuted in New Mexico, acted with deliberate indifference to inhumane conditions of confinement in his prisoner transport van, retaliating against detainees who complained of those conditions by depriving them of restroom breaks, food, and water, and cruelly blasting heat on them as they passed through the southwestern desert. Also, in 2021, a federal judge in the Eastern District of Arkansas sentenced private prisoner transport officer Eric Kindley to life in prison for sexually assaulting 2 women in his custody. That investigation, like Marquette Johnson's, identified many more victims in other jurisdictions, demonstrating the prevalence of these types of crimes. To investigate and prosecute these cases, the department followed the evidence trail. We talked to witnesses and victims across the country, and we will maintain the same level of diligence when investigating and prosecuting any future constitutional violations by prisoner transport officers. This sentence highlights the abuses of this industry, the bravery of the victims who came forward to report that abuse, and our commitment to seeing justice done for these victims. Seeking justice in these cases and preventing this type of depraved exploitation of vulnerable people will remain a priority for the U.S. Department of Justice. Thank you.